How many times have you written down your dreams, but never started them? Anya had a notebook full of ideas, stories she wanted to write, videos she wanted to film, projects she dreamed of starting. But every time she opened the notebook, something stopped her. She would think, "It's not ready. It's not good enough. I'm not ready." So the notebook stayed closed, and the dreams stayed waiting. One afternoon, while cleaning her room, she found a small painting tucked inside an old drawer. It was messy, colorful, incomplete, but familiar. She had painted it when she was 9. No planning, no fear, just play. Her grandfather had framed it, even though the colors ran outside the lines and the paper was crumpled in places. When she asked him why, he said, "Because it was the first time you made something from nothing." She remembered that moment now, how proud she had been, not of the painting, but of the courage it took to start. Later that evening, she sat on her bed with her notebook open again. No pressure, no plan, just one sentence. She wrote, "It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be mine." The next morning, Anya woke up earlier than usual. She didn't have a full plan. She didn't feel confident, but she felt ready enough to try. She opened her notebook again. The sentence from last night stared back at her like a quiet permission. So she wrote another line, then another. The writing wasn't beautiful. Some words felt awkward. Some sentences didn't make sense. But she didn't stop, because this time, she wasn't aiming for perfection. She was aiming for progress. After a few pages, she closed the notebook, not out of frustration, but because she was done for today. And that was enough. That afternoon, while walking past the school's notice board, she saw a sign about a storytelling contest. She paused. Normally, she would have ignored it. Too soon, too public, too risky. But something inside her whispered, "You've already begun." She took a photo of the sign and walked on, heart racing, mind spinning. That evening, she wrote a sentence in big letters across a blank page. "Starting doesn't mean I know everything. It means I'm brave enough to learn." And maybe, just maybe, that was more powerful than being perfect. The next day, Anya stood in front of her mirror, practicing the first few lines of her story. Her voice was shaky. Her hands moved too much. She forgot words. But she kept going. She didn't correct every mistake. She didn't rehearse for perfection. She just showed up for the version of herself that used to hide behind "not ready." Later, when she told her best friend she might enter the contest, the reaction wasn't what she expected. "That's amazing," her friend said. "I could never do something like that." Anya smiled, not because she was confident, but because she used to say the same thing. That evening, she remembered something her grandfather had once told her as a child. Perfection is a story people tell after the real story has already begun. She finally understood what that meant. Perfection doesn't come before you start. It comes from starting, failing, adjusting, again and again. She picked up her notebook, flipped to a fresh page, and titled her story draft, Version 1. Not final draft, not my best work, just version 1. Because now she knew, real courage isn't publishing something flawless. It's being willing to begin. A few days later, Anya submitted her name for the contest. No announcement, no big moment, just a quiet decision, sealed with a deep breath. In the evenings, she continued shaping her story. Some days it flowed, some days it didn't. But she didn't judge the slow days. She simply marked them as part of the process. One night, after a long revision session, she looked at the pages in front of her. Crossed out lines, handwritten notes, messy arrows. It wasn't pretty, but it was hers. She smiled, realizing how far she had come from the girl who used to stare at blank pages, frozen by fear of imperfection. Now she moved. She created. Even when it wasn't graceful. That week, while walking with her grandfather, she told him about the contest. He didn't ask if she thought she would win. He simply said, "You've already done the hardest part. You started." Anya didn't need to hear anything else, because the old fear, the one that whispered, "You're not enough," was quieter now. Not gone, just not in control. And in that quiet, something stronger was growing. The day of the contest arrived. Anya stood backstage, her notebook in hand, heart beating faster than usual. She watched other students walk on stage, some polished, some confident, some clearly prepared for weeks, and for a moment, the doubt crept in again. What if I mess up? What if they don't get it? What if I'm not as good? But then she looked down at her hands, holding pages filled with her effort, her thoughts, her voice. And she remembered what this was really about. Not being better than anyone, not proving anything, just showing up as she was. When her name was called, she took a slow breath and walked on stage. The lights were bright. The room was quiet, but she didn't rush. She opened her notebook, looked at the first word, and began. Her voice shook a little at first. Her hands trembled, but she kept going. Because this wasn't about being fearless. It was about doing it anyway. And in those few minutes, she wasn't the girl afraid to start anymore. She was the girl who had started. When Anya finished her story, the room was silent for a moment. Then came a soft wave of applause. Not thunderous, not overwhelming, but warm. She stepped off the stage slowly. Her hands were still shaking, but her chest felt light, like something heavy had finally been set down. Backstage, no one asked her if she thought she'd win, and she didn't need to wonder, because winning had already happened, long before she ever spoke a word. It happened the moment she opened her notebook, the moment she allowed herself to be seen, the moment she stopped waiting for perfect and chose real instead. That night, at home, she taped a new page to her wall. It said, "Perfection never made anything begin, but starting has made everything possible." She looked at it for a while, then smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because she no longer needed it to be. She had started, and that meant she could start again and again, each time more honest, more ready, and always enough.